Welcome to Spotlight Television. I'm Damon Roberts. Dr. Eugene Antenucci, also known as Dr. Gene, has been a healthcare provider since 1983. He graduated from NYU College of Dentistry and served as a captain and dentist in the U.S. Air Force. Following his service, he opened a private dental practice that gained national recognition. He taught as an associate clinical professor at NYU and Stony Brook Dental Schools and conducts international seminars all over the world. His work with patients has given him a passion for health and wellness and has led him to pursue certification in nutrition, fitness, and wellness as a certified health and wellness coach. Dr. Gene has also published 5 books and hosted 2 different television shows, all talking about different health and wellness topics. Please welcome to Spotlight Television, Dr. Gene Antenucci. Dr. Gene, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Damon.
Well, it's great to have you here, and it's a fascinating topic. Obviously, overall health and wellness is gaining a lot of recognition, not only because of certain people, but obviously people just paying more attention. People are living longer, so there's a lot going on. So it's a great topic. But before we get into some of the nooks and crannies of what you do and some of the things you're studying and talking to patients about, tell everybody about how you got not only into dentistry, but how you got into overall health and wellness, because some of what you're doing now in the books you're writing are not just about making sure your teeth are clean.
They're not about dentistry at all, actually.
Exactly. You're getting into really overall health and wellness. Tell them how you started.
Well, I grew up with the dad as a physician. He was an OBGYN, and I always thought of myself as going into healthcare. And it was just different twists of fate that brought me into dentistry. I worked for a neighbor who happened to be a dentist in his office, and I was really attracted to it. This was during the end of high school, early college, and I became a dentist. And I went to NYU College of Dentistry, and I really loved what I do in dentistry, because what dentistry did was it brought me in a different way, very close to people. And I'm working, everybody thinks of dentistry as filling cavities and terrible things like root canals and all, but really I'm working one-on-one with individuals and dealing with their overall health. And that opened my eyes to many different avenues. It made me more aware of overall health and the need for people, my patients who are struggling with all sorts of things, to help them with their health issues.
And people always say you can get a good look into your overall health by obviously through your gut, through your mouth, and you always hear these kind of like lines that you can get through your eyes and through these kind of things of overall looking at your overall health through the prism of other specific parts of the body.
It's actually very, very scary when I can tell that a patient's diabetic. I can know just when they sit down. I could tell that they may have problems with their breathing, with their lungs, with their respiratory system. Everything is interconnected, and that's what my first book, Journey of 1,000 Smiles, was about. It's like, it's not just about teeth. I had that realization. It's our bodies are an orchestra that works together in so many ways, and a problem with your gut will show up in your mouth. A problem with your circulatory system will show up in your mouth. A problem in your mouth will show up in terms of cardiac disease. So there's an interconnectedness of our bodies and our systems that is an exquisite design, but it's also it's a scary thing when you think of it, because one system's off and the rest of our bodies are off. And that was a big impetus for me in terms of going further into looking into health and wellness and going beyond dentistry in terms of how I help people.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that pivot from just, like you said, dentistry to overall health. You know, somebody who's gained a lot of fame recently is Gary Brecka, a human biologist. And what he says is, what made me pivot from working at a life insurance company, I was working at a life insurance company and I was looking at all this data on humans, but I could never say anything about it, even though I was looking at this and going, oh, like you said, this person's diabetic, or this person had this person had that. And that's what made him pivot into, I have to do more with the knowledge I have after looking at thousands and thousands of reports and data and years of data. I have to do more to talk to people. For you, what was that pivot? What was that moment that said, I need to move into overall health and not just dentistry?
It was actually a very selfish pivot, self-centered pivot. I had just gotten back from a vacation in Italy, beautiful vacation. We spent it all around Italy, but I was looking at photos as we normally do when we're back, and I was looking at a picture of myself standing in front of the Duomo. I was sideways with a foot on one of the steps of the Duomo, wearing my new favorite Italian shirt, and I looked at the picture, and my belly was hanging out like this in the picture, and I said, "Oh my gosh!" Right away, I went to a mirror, turned sideways, and I had a watermelon gut. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because I don't view myself that way. And right away, the song, Michael Jackson's song, "The Man in the Mirror" came to my mind. You know, I'm looking at the man in the mirror, and I got to ask him to change his ways. So that was really the moment for me that I said, you got to take care of yourself. And shortly after that time, I had gone for a physical, and I was pre-diabetic. So I'm 35 pounds overweight, not diabetic, but on that road. And you know what, this isn't right. So I did a lot of things at that time, nutritionally and exercising and all, to get myself back into shape. And that started my road towards really studying and looking to understand. It led me to pursue certification as a health, wellness, and nutrition coach with a national organization so that I could better understand for myself, but then help my patients who are suffering from all sorts of things. I mean, I've been a dentist for 40 years, and I'm treating I'm treating grandkids of patients. And I've seen people deteriorate before my eyes, and they're all the diseases that Americans suffer from. So that really became my interest for myself, for my family, to prevent these things, but also to help other people and to gain the knowledge base to go beyond just the platitudes of you know, eat well and get you some sleep and all these things that we know are true, but why, you know, and that's really what I looked into. And that's what my books were about.
Yeah, and let's talk about your first book, as you said, Journey of 1,000 Smiles, and let's focus on the journey part. Obviously, it is a journey, and in your journey through health and seeing these other things connected, tell me why you wanted to write the book, a little bit about the book, but tell me about also the education part to the patient, about that journey that maybe they were on that they didn't realize. Hey, some of these other issues could be dealing with what's going on in your mouth. Tell me about the education and that journey part.
Well, for example, a patient comes in and they are diabetic. It's on their health form, and I read that. But I also see that they're obese or grossly overweight to the point of obesity. These two things come together. Now, that person needs counseling in terms of nutrition. They need counseling and nutrition will help their diabetes, but then there are other physical things that are all involved, that hypertension comes into play, different metabolic diseases and conditions, and then as we go through age, there's issues where I've watched my patients who are overweight, who are suffering from all of these metabolic diseases. They both had both knees replaced, they had their hips replaced because their bodies can't bear it. Everything starts to break apart and fall down, or break down and fall apart as we age and as we abuse our bodies. So as a dentist, you know, when I see inflamed gum tissue, I know that there's a correlation between that and cardiac disease, hypertension. Most likely the person has a blood pressure issue, and they are more prone to having a heart attack. So all of these things came together, and these are the ideas that went into the book, A Journey of 1,000 Smiles, to take the step-by-step view of first of all, what's involved with a healthy mouth, but then to go beyond that beautiful smile to say it means a beautifully healthy body.
Do you feel like we live in a society that medicates to the problems that we already have instead of finding, maybe supplementing what the body is missing to avoid getting to the point where you have a problem?
A perfect example of that is Ozempic today as a drug, or that class of drugs.
Yeah.
It's a drug that's not approved for weight loss, but everybody, every influencer in the world is taking it and promoting it. Why? Because it's a pill to take instead of changing a lifestyle. It's a quick fix, but it has its own detrimental changes in the body, and it doesn't address the problem. And that's the problem with healthcare in America, that we are medicating things but not solving the issue. And the issue is nutrition, it's movement and exercise, it's all of the things that I talk about in my books that go towards health and wellness and longevity.
Yeah. Now, in your book, Finding the Good Life, you talk about the 7 pillars of health. So let's kind of walk through those. Give me some of those and describe to the audience what they are.
The first step in gaining health is to know exactly where you are today. To understand, there are DNA tests that you can take to see what tendencies your body might have.
That's very hot right now. It seems like you're hearing a lot of people saying you should DNA test at least once in your life to know, again, are there things that your body is missing that you can supplement for through whether it's methylated multivitamins or what it is? Talk to me. What's your feeling on that?
Well, that's one aspect of it. It's never a predictor of health or illness, but it is an indication of where you might be. So if your DNA is showing you that, I have a Tay-Sachs disease in my background, then you better understand where you are. If you have hypertension, if there are issues that show in your DNA of different cancerous cells or problems, it doesn't mean that you will develop cancer, but it means that you have the ability to, the tendency possibly towards it. So you have the ability to make changes. So knowing where you are, DNA is one, taking your family history, looking at what your grandparents died from or what they suffered from over their lives, what your siblings are dealing with. Looking at your environment, that's part of where you are, and the environmental effects on your body. So pillar number one, know where you are starting, where you are coming from. Pillar number two is know where you want to go, know where you want to be. What is your health? Is it as simple as I want to lose 30 pounds and I want to look like, I want to look buffed and the most muscular guy or woman around? Well, if those are your goals, then that's your image as to what you want to be a year from now or 6 months from now. And you take the steps and do the things that you need to do, nutritionally, fitness-wise, and everything else. So know where you're starting, know where you want to go, just like in business. The third step is have a positive mindset with everything that you approach. So if you are looking to lose weight, your mind has to be focused in the right way, not that this is a chore, but that you're going to health and that you're looking at things positively. The next pillar is really important. They're all important, but nutrition. Nutrition, diet goes way beyond, no carbs and all that. And it's so important because our bodies are, they were forged in fire over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And our DNA has certain requirements that really are opposite of what the American diet is today. So feeding our bodies the way our bodies need to be fed, it has to be understood and done. And that's a source of so much illness. The next pillar is movement. We call it exercise. You think of exercise, you go to a gym, you put on shorts, you put on a sweatshirt, but that's really not how our ancestors and our DNA has been formed. It was formed with our ancient ancestors running away from animals so they're not going to be a prey to a predator, or running after animals so they could eat something, or lifting heavy objects, or building structures, or walking and migrating large distances. Our bodies are meant to move, and when we don't move, we're missing. Our bodies are missing a lot of the information that it needs. The next pillar, very important, are the social foundations of our bodies, of our lives. Again, we evolved with social networks, and part of our internal structure needs society. It needs family, it needs friends, it needs people to commerce with, to be with. And we need to nurture that aspect of ourselves for health. And the last aspect comes down to balance in our lives, to keep our mental abilities where they belong. Because mental health in America is down the tubes for a number of reasons, for many of these reasons tied together. But we need balance between our family life, our work life, and our spiritual life, our sense that we are a part of a bigger thing in this world. And that's what the book's about. The book puts all of these aspects together to help people find what I call the good life.
Do any of those pillars if a 30-year-old comes to you, maybe a 40-year-old, let's say, because obviously when you have your health, you have your youth, but as you get to 30, 40 years old, things start to change. You have a family, some of those pillars start to change. You're not as active as things change. Would someone who comes to you in their 30s and 40s, would one of those pillars be more important than someone who came to you at 60 or 70?
I would.
As far as which one is most important?
I think the most important pillar is nutrition, what we take into our body. Because if our bodies have a roadmap inside of them already, and we give it the wrong information, it can function, but it starts to malfunction. It's like having a Ferrari, and that Ferrari needs the best fuel to work with, but you're feeding it regular gas. It doesn't work optimally. Our bodies are Ferraris, but we're eating junk oils. We're eating too many carbs and sugars, causes inflammation throughout our bodies, causes systems to break down. And when you're a teen, you could look like this, skinny like this, and eat all the French fries and hamburgers and junk food that you want to. But as your body chugs along in your 40s and 50s and 60s, there's a lot of damage that's been done. That can be reversed with the right information or the right food, but nutrition is key. Nutrition is really important.
I feel like even the discussion these days, even around something as simple as water, and we think about drinking water, how important drinking water is, but I feel like the discussion around water, now what's your feeling now? You're hearing things like, well, you shouldn't be drinking regular water, you should be drinking bottled water, but now bottled water, you should really be drinking hydrogen water. So what is, even when it comes to something like as simple as water?
I'm speaking anecdotally, but I always go back to my body is made up of really a blueprint that was forged a long time ago. Can't change my hair color, can't change my eye color, can't change my skin color. That's set in stone. Some things do change, but water was water. Water's dirty. So if anything about water, I would say purify your water, make sure it's filtered and clean with minimal chemicals in it, but you need water because our body is mostly made up of water. It's necessary for all of our body functions to work properly. You need 7-8 glasses of water you should be drinking per day. And it doesn't mean soda water or coffee water. You need water. So I don't buy bottled stuff. I make sure the water that I drink is filtered.
Mm. So let's talk about a couple of other books. One I'm interested in, The Forever Human, because I think that's what our whole discussion seems to be. You're always trying to gear towards being that forever human, live as long. People are living longer, obviously.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Well, that was my evolution in thinking, and my next book was The Forever Human that I wrote. What happened if I went to a reunion. I hadn't seen, I really hate going to reunions, but I decided to go to this class reunion. I hadn't seen these people for over 30 years. I walked in, and my first thought was, who the heck are all these old people? And I'm looking around, and I'm saying, am I in the wrong room, wrong place? And then I heard some voices that sounded sort of familiar, and I saw some, the gaits of some people, the way people walked, or the mannerisms the same. And I looked around the room, and I saw some people looked like they were really, really old. I mean, really, they were with canes and stuff, and they're my age. Others looked pretty good. They looked like, I could recognize them right away. And it made me think, what is it that makes one person age this way and one age another way? Genetics, yes, part of it, but another part of it is lifestyle. So it made me go into this journey of looking into longevity, looking into aspects of longevity. At the time, I was on a trip to Italy, and when I was doing research for this book, and I was in Amalfi, and if you've ever been to Amalfi, behind Amalfi, there's a mountain that has a pathway up it. It's not a path; it's like a road just for foot traffic that goes up this mountain. And there's old ladies, 85, 90 years old, walking up and walking down, and I'm saying these people got some. These aren't like the grandmas I know in Long Island in my practice who are all on every drug in the world and are walking around with tennis balls under their wheelers. There's something different. Yeah. There's a book by Dan Buettner called The Blue Zone, And that book caught my interest. And there are areas in the world, he identifies 5 areas in the world where people live over 100 more than anywhere else. And Italy happens to have one of the blue zones.
And this goes to your book, The Secrets of Italian
That's
Self-Care.
why I put down.
Right.
That's why I put down that book that I was writing on longevity, The Forever Human, and I wrote The Secrets of Italian Self-Care because Italy in 2023 was recognized as the #1 country in the world in terms of health, longevity, more people living over 100 than anywhere else in the world, less mental illness, less cardiac disease, less cancer. So there's something special about that country that's as a part of the blue zones. So I looked into Italian culture, and there are unique aspects of the Italian culture, their society, the way that they socialize, the types of food they eat. The Mediterranean diet is one of the healthiest diets that we can have for a number of reasons, and they are living the American diet. Whole foods that are unadulterated, that are really farm to table for the most part. The coffee culture in Italy has a part of health. The wine culture in Italy has a part of health. And the way, the spiritual sense, a sense of something more important than themselves, and all these things come together. And I realized these things are the same things that I wrote about without really looking into longevity in my book, Finding the Good Life. But the Italian uniqueness of it was really, really special. So that book has been doing really, really well. I'm very proud of it. And it shows the Italian aspect of self-care, of what they're doing to really be one of the healthiest countries in the world.
Yeah, I was exposed to it early on in my marriage with my wife. She has in-laws from Germany, and I can remember going to Germany for the first time and seeing her grandmothers. One lived to 100, and I mean, maybe she slowed down, I would say, in her last year and a half. But we were there when she was 95, and I mean, she was climbing mountains to go to the castles. I mean, I couldn't keep up with her.
You can't keep up. You're huffing and puffing. And I met a woman in Italy. We were in a restaurant, and she owned the restaurant. She was 88 years old, and I asked her where she lived, and she lived up the mountain. And I said, well, how do you get there? She goes, I walk. I've been doing it since I've been a young girl. I go up and down every day. I said, God bless, it's pretty amazing.
So let's talk to young people out there. If you could give advice, or you could give one piece of advice to someone, let's say in their 30s, 40s, starting to think about starting a family, getting married, and their health, obviously things are going to change in their life, and that's going to affect their health. What's the one piece of advice you could give to a young viewer out there around that age? If they don't know where to start.
If they don't know where to start, the starting point is nutrition. It really is to give your body the messages that it needs to do the work that it does. Every cell in our body is programmed for one thing, and that's to live. Our cells aren't programmed to die, they're programmed to live, but they need the right information. Food is information. It's proteins. They're numbers and zeros and ones that come together in our body, and they do the right thing. With young people, it's so almost impossible to get the message across when you're dealing with a teenager, because they won't even touch a vegetable. But the greens and the red vegetables and green vegetables and the vitamins and minerals and everything that's in them, in the whole foods, are so important. But that would be my message, to incorporate that in your diet. To not take your body for granted, because your body's a magnificent, beautiful thing. It's an amazing creation, and to not honor it by doing what it needs is, you're going to pay for it one day, And when you do, it's too late, because the medicines don't do the job. And that's the fallacy of our healthcare system, is that, you know what, you're sick, take a pill. You got diabetes, don't change your life, just take a pill, you'll be fine.
Right, and then all you end up doing is increasing the dosage, and you never get away from it.
You add more drugs to counter the side effects of those drugs, and it's a downhill spiral.
Let's talk a little bit about what's next for you. What's coming up for Dr. Gene? We're going to be excited to partner with you on a show on overall health and wellness that you're going to host here on Spotlight Television. I think that's going to be very exciting as you get to talk to experts. But what else do you have coming up?
Well, I have ideas for other books going in the health and wellness arena, in the health and wellness realm. I'm looking at I'm looking at developing some sort of a seminar series or a series where I can bring this message to wider numbers of people. And along those lines, I do a lot of lecturing, and my lectures are going in this direction now to dental groups because they're made up of hygienists and staff people and dentists, all who need healthcare. So that's a part of it. But I'm looking to develop this more as something where I can really reach and help people.
Are younger dentists in the practices now realizing this message earlier on in their practice that you have kind of had this journey to get there? Is there still an education drop off?
There's no education regarding nutrition. Even in medical school, there's no real nutritional education. In dental school, it's the basics. And no, a dental student is a graduating dental student is just worried about getting a job and learning their skills. No.
Do you feel like dentistry and other health categories like dentistry or specialties, do you think we're moving towards where they're all going to focus on overall health, or no?
No, it's going actually the opposite direction. Medicine is compartmentalized, where there's a specialty within specialties for everything. So you have a stomach problem, you go to the stomach doctor. You don't go back a step and say, what nutritional things are affecting my gut?
What could I be missing?
What can I be missing? What can I do? Not what medicine I need to take care of my gut. And then when that medicine gives me a side effect where I have a twitch like this or something happens, then I go to the twitch doctor who gives me another medicine to get rid of the twitch, who says that's the way medicine is. It's going in the wrong direction. There are holistic doctors who have this sense of looking at the whole body, but they're few and far between. But that's where I look when I need to find a physician. I think chiropractors are on the right track in terms of looking at overall health, having an idea of nutrition and the way the body works together. But American medicine has gone off the rails as far as I'm concerned.
Mm. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who agree with you, who are watching this. So let's do one of the most important things we can do. Let people know how they get in touch with you, where they can find your books, where they can get this. If they want to soak this message in, where can they find more of it?
So all my books are on my website at drgeneauthor.com. And also I have all my books are through Amazon, amazon.com/author/Dr. Gene is where I can be found there.
Okay, drgeneauthor.com is where they can
That's
go
my website.
Well, it's been a fascinating conversation, such an important topic, and we're excited to see what your show brings. We'll be having that right here, hosting on Spotlight Television. We're excited about that. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm looking forward to it. Thank you much.
Dr. Eugene Antenucci right here on Spotlight Television. I want to thank all of you for joining us once again. Until next time, we'll see you right here on Spotlight Television.